Hi YouTube! Today's video is showing you guys how I use Procreate and the Isometric grid to create little rooms and spaces. This room is really simple. It is just a broom closet. I'm trying to do a series of rooms that would fit within a school for witches. So as you see to the left, I've got some shorthand instructions on how I have gotten this far. The first layer is just for sketching and getting the initial shape of the room set up. After that, I lower the opacity on that layer, create a new layer, and use that for the actual line work. For the lines, I am using the dry ink brush in a dark purple shade. So the idea for this piece was just a little broom closet where all of the brooms should be stored if they aren't in use. There is also a little recipe on the side of the bookshelf that shows how to create a speed boosting potion. So all of the ingredients for that potion are here in the room as well. I get a lot of questions on how I fill my rooms up and what objects I decide to put in them. And honestly, it's just up to creativity, and I really try to give myself themes for the rooms because sometimes you do get to a point where you feel like you've drawn the same decorations in the same rooms over and over again, and I want all of my isometric rooms to have their own personality. So once you get your line work finished, you can create a new layer under the line work and start painting. I'm using the Studio brush pen, I think, to color, and I'm using the flooding technique where you create a layer, trace the object, and flood the inside with the same color you outlined in. So you will just outline the shape of the object with whatever color you need, and once the lines are connected, you drag and drop and fill in the middle area. And that's how I color pretty much everything because I'm really lazy. This layer that I am starting right now is a layer just for objects that are in glass bottles or glass vials. Anything that's made out of glass and you can see through, I like to create on its own layer so that you can play with the hue or value later on if need be. I don't know about anybody else watching, but I am obsessed with Netflix's Disenchantment cartoon, created by Matt Groening, I think is how you say his name. The same guy that did both The Simpsons and Futurama. Futurama is one of my favorite shows ever, so I really like Disenchantment on Netflix because they are pretty similar, of course, in art style, but the dry humor is all the same. But there is a character who is a demon named Lucy, and he gets trapped in a bottle and looks somewhat similar to the guys I have in these bottles here. So I thought I would kind of reference him a little bit with some of the vials I had on the shelf. Since this piece was so simple, I thought I would put as much detail as I could in smaller areas. Right here, I drew a produce bag with arms in it. I'm sorry. I don't really have an explanation, but there's nothing wrong with practicing some hands. Everybody needs practice drawing hands every now and again, right? Today I purchased the Untitled Goose Game for the Nintendo Switch. I saw like one video about being a goose and I knew I had to play it. So today I bought it. It was only like $20 and I went through 3 levels, I guess you could call it, or 3 to-do lists rather. And so far I'm thoroughly enjoying being this goose. I mean, he's a total jerk, but he gets the job done. So if you're looking for a really lazy game to play, something low stress, something super funny, I definitely recommend the Untitled Goose Game. I heard it's on Mac, PC, and on Switch as of right now. I'm not being sponsored by the Goose Game, but Untitled Goose Game, email me, you know. I got some artwork needs buying, some geese that need playing with. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways. Back to the painting. Right now I am just cleaning up the flat colors on the layers so that I can move on to adding some textures with some clipping masks. So right now I'm just pressing and holding on areas that are outside of the lines and going back with my eraser and erasing whatever layer it is that's so messy. Also, as I'm painting this, I'm realizing that the spider on the carpet looks a lot like the spider from the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Did you guys watch that show, or does no one know what I'm talking about? Okay, so I changed the color of the wall for like the third time already, and now I'm going in and painting the chains that are holding the brooms in the closet so that they don't get out of the closet and get into any trouble. There is a sign on the wall that reads, "All of the brooms must be stored in the closet when not in use," and that the witches are responsible for any damages caused by their brooms if they do not get locked up correctly. Right here, I am creating the first clipping mask for this entire painting. So what that does is that basically sets a perimeter for whatever you're painting on. So I selected the layer that is the floor, which is the little brown square area there. And then I painted on top of it with this layer labeled layer 14. I then set that layer as a clipping mask so that it will only color over the layer it is set to mask. So I use clipping masks all throughout the painting. Almost every layer or object will have some type of mask on it, either a highlight or some type of shadow. So here I'm going through all of the layers to show you guys how I have split everything up so that I can do the clipping masks per layer later on. So right now I'm adding highlights to the chains, and since they are their own layer, when I do the clipping mask and release it, it will show you guys how the mask works per layer. And the clipping mask option is just found under the layers tab, and you click your layer and you can unclick clipping mask, or if that's too messy for you, you can go back and turn it on. This layer is a mask for all of the glass objects, so just adding some highlights there before moving on and adding shadows to the entire piece. So on the layer that I have labeled stones, I made a mistake and painted the cabinet on the same layer as the stones, which would have been a quick fix if I just repainted the cabinet, but I'm really lazy, so I just worked around it and made my life more difficult. Here I grab a purplish brush, and I'm using the Grunge brush for this just to add some texture on the rocks. There's not really a pattern to which I do this. I'm just painting the areas that I think would be the darkest or the shadiest if I was looking into this room. So on top of the layer that I use to shade the bricks, I'm choosing a yellow gold color, still using that grunge brush, and I'm adding some highlights to these stones. I found that I really like the way that this looks using the yellow with the gray and then playing with the settings later on. So the window is going to be the brightest area by far. So I went in with that grunge brush and just went all out in the window with that gold color because I'm going to make this area so much brighter later on. I also chose a green color to go around the perimeter of the room to kind of add an algae or moss to the rocks just to give it a little bit of separation between the wall and the floor. My favorite part of any piece is going in and adding the shading and the shadows. So for this one, I started with a neon purple color and went around the items on the shelf, and then I went down to the items on the bookcase to add some shadows and some values. With that purple brush, I've got that layer set to multiply. Sometimes purple won't always work out and you'll have to use a different color like a warm tone red or something a lot cooler like a blue or a green. For this piece, I changed the walls to a purple color so I knew that the purple would work for the shadows. And then I knew with purple that gold went really well with that. So one of the final steps in a lot of my pieces is to add some type of secondary lighting. A lot of times I will add string lights or something that glows. So this time I just drew little dust specks coming from the window and I gave them a little glow and that was it. After adding the highlights, I went back with the grunge brush and added a few more shadows and highlights, and then I was officially finished. This is Inktober Day 6, Isometric number 6 on October 6th. Thank you so much for watching. Here is my social media if you want to follow me anywhere else, and have a happy Sunday.